Welcome to the Predictive Playbook, folks. I'm glad that you took the time to watch this entertaining and fast-paced show with my good friend and pal, Dr. Chuck. If you look at the standings over at Sports Memo, we humbly say that we are two of the best that are over there right now over long periods of time. And it's not to take away from anybody else, but facts are facts, and right now we're both running pretty hot. We're going to talk Major League Baseball, and this is an area where I really respect Chuck's knowledge of the game. He's very, very good at it. He has a lot of picks for you guys, and you're going to get an example right now, firsthand, of the knowledge and the winning success that he possesses. So in the Major League Baseball, we're going to talk about the games that have some meaning, and that means the standings. So there are going to be teams that are fighting for the playoffs, fighting for the pennant. And, ironically, the New York Yankees are in fourth place. So are the Miami Marlins. So are the Los Angeles Angels. So are the Kansas City Royals. And so are the Chicago Cubs. And so are Colorado Rockies. The difference is that the Yankees are way over 500. And the other teams I mentioned have losing records. So we have a monster division in the American League East, where Boston is 1.5 games up and has the first playoff berth for the wild card. Toronto is right behind them. And then the Yankees are only half a game behind Toronto. So it's going to be a real photo finish in the American League for sure. Over to National League, I'm not sure if the Phillies are watching too much of the NFL with the Eagles. I don't know what they're doing, but how do you lose 2-0 to the Baltimore Orioles? So they're almost like out of contention, even though they're 4.5 games behind Atlanta, and they have 3 games coming up with Atlanta. Yeah. But they basically have to win out now, Chuck. That's the scoop there. And then you see something else in the National League. The first wild card right now is the Dodgers, who are 1 game behind the Giants. And they are 15.5 games ahead of the second wild card. That has never happened, at least in my database, going back to 1980, or the beginning of the wild card era. So we're going to break down a lot of games here, and the first one we're going to do is the Pittsburgh is playing at Cincinnati. We have Keller on the hill for Pittsburgh, 4-11, 6.14 ERA, and Cincinnati has Molly, right-hander, 12-5, 3.59 ERA. Where should we be putting our money on this game, Chuck?
Well, starting off, you get one of these spots, and it's funny you mentioned the Phillies because the Reds are definitely not finishing strong in a second wild card position that they held somewhat firmly just about a month ago. Just can't seem to string wins together. But so like I said, what you get in baseball a lot is a matchup that this just happened in Pittsburgh last week. Keller faced Molly. Molly is one of those guys. I don't know what's going on this year with him. Great American Ballpark is known as a bandbox, but he's almost the Cy Young hands-down winner if he didn't have to pitch at home. His FIP splits, he's got a full-on 4-point edge on his FIP on the road as opposed to home. But I think, when I'm capping baseball, we're only talking value, and the value isn't, we were discussing off air, I'm gonna be on a lot of these big favorites. The Pirates were a pretty big, popular first 5 side last night. Kind of took a bad beat with those 2 home runs in the bottom of the 5th. And then the Reds kind of took it from there, and I'd be hard-pressed to think that the Reds don't do that again. Not going to be a lot of value on the line. Following a win inside the division, the last 20, the Reds are 14-6, but they're only 10-10, covering that run line, and the return on interest investment's no good there. So, if you wanted to lay big wood on like a -190, -200, you could. Otherwise, I would probably lean towards taking the first 5 run line, up by a run after 5. Molly should pitch a little bit better. He's been better against the Pirates, even though he's rough at home. But you look at last time, he got shelled by the Tigers. Last time he was home after 2 away starts and 2 away starts to follow. So, not a great spot on either of these if you're looking at it. But I do think the Reds win. Probably not worth laying that they win by a couple runs.
It sounds good, and I'll add the fact that Pittsburgh is winless in the second half of the season when they play a National League team on the road that's scoring 4.5 or more runs per game. That tells me that Pittsburgh's offense is not good, and Probably worse than Detroit when Molly lost, to your point.
Just in general, not good, yes.
Yep. Yeah, they're not playoff bound anytime soon in the years to come.
Unfortunately.
No, that's true. Let's see. Our next game is the Orioles and the Phillies, and there's no starter named for this game. For me personally, not knowing who is going to start, it could be a bullpen starter for Philly. I have no clue what the Orioles are doing, and I also have no clue how you don't score a run against the Orioles and that bullpen of theirs. But maybe you can shed some light on this game, Dr. Chuck, for us, and bring me some understanding.
I just find it so, I don't know. I almost want to parlay this conversation into another game we're not going to talk about, just to show the dichotomy of what maybe just a management motivational just tactics, with comparing Girardi versus Snitker. I mean, the Braves have no business winning this division. They don't have Soroka. They haven't had Soroka, period. They lost Acuna months ago. Good for them they go out and get Soler, they go out and get Duvall back, and I was listening to the MLB Tonight guys the other night, and they're just floored. This guy's playing on a 1-year contract on 5 different teams the last 5 years, crushing it. They were saying his 162 game average is 35 homers, 110 RBIs. The guy can't get a team. Traded again at the deadline, and now he's gonna somewhat be one of the MVPs of a team that's gonna make the playoffs. And I think it's an indictment on the Phillies. So, sure, you could complain about the Mets too, but they haven't had DeGrom, and he was probably going to win a Cy Young and just was immaculate. But the Phillies don't have this. They have the guy that's going to be the MVP on a team that's probably not going to make the playoffs. And whose heads roll on this? It's just so interesting, yeah. And then, like you said, culminating, you're over there, so you're hearing it, but then culminating in a 2-0 shutout to John Means, who everyone has been beating around for months this season.
It is amazing, and we mentioned Baltimore's bullpen, which I believe ranks worst in ERA at least, and worst among many categories. Believe it or not, the Phillies are 6-12, losing 11 units. So it's $1,100 per $100 bet against teams that have terrible bullpens with an ERA of over 5.2.
Yeah.
Now there's where you draw the line in the sand and say, guys, Girardi, what the heck's going on with these games?
And my friend Ace on Twitter will tell you, Ian Kennedy is approaching the record for blown saves. That's not helping.
Yeah, he's making that closer out in Los Angeles look really, really good right now.
Yeah, maybe Kenley will get himself a big contract.
That's true. Good stuff. Next game we're going to look at is the Cardinals and the Brewers. And the Cardinals were the team that in many conversations with Tony Finn and Rob Vino, Manny's Irish Pub, we thought that their schedule was they just were going to be overwhelmed having to play the Brewers as many times as they have. Just a very tough schedule. So what have they done? They've won, 8 in a row? And I guess 7 in a row. Now they're looking for their 8th. And in this matchup, we have, as you mentioned backstage, Lester pitched last night, and that was a cool win for him. That was his 200th. I've always liked that guy, and I think I liked him even better when it was announced that he wasn't afraid to say that he was scared to death to throw the ball to first with a guy on first base, that he just positively couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But looking at this game here, trying to find the Cardinals here real quick for us. There we are. Cardinals are now 80-69. So they were just a couple games over 500 not too long ago. You have Woodford, right-handed pitcher, 2-3, 4.30 ERA, going up against probably a pretty good stud. Surprisingly, that he's 9-9, but a 2.55 ERA. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, it's the battle of the Woodies, as we said. Yeah, Woodruff is just that guy that doesn't get that run support. He's kind of got that DeGrom thing of the Central going on a little bit. Not to that extent. There was a period of time where the Mets had scored like 1.5 runs per game for him. But yeah, the Cardinals, the bane of my existence. I'm a Reds fan, and how are they doing it? They have Arenado. He is nothing like he was for the Rockies. They trade for John Lesnar and Jay Happ off the scrap heap. They're piecing it together with Woodford and Adam Wainwright, who I think turned 49 last week, and they're still going to probably edge the Reds out in the playoff, in the wild card race, and I have no idea. I don't really want to be on the side of Woodford, as he kind of pitched pretty decent against the Brewers last time. His FIP didn't match his ERA, which is what I always harp on, is newspaper numbers versus the analytics. You can have your newspaper numbers, and I will take the numbers that tell me what actually happened. And I think his left on base rate was a perfect 100 with a batting average on balls in play that game of like 180. So if Woodruff is going to get the run support, maybe it's tonight. But I mean, how are you going to put any money on the Brewers? We were discussing this off air too. Cardinals need this game like blood. Reds have an easier game against the Pirates. They also won last night, and the Brewers just don't need this game. And while they are better at many positions, it's just showing. Last night they lose 5-2, put up very little fight, even for Freddie Peralta, who, despite some early trouble, kind of pitched his butt off, and they get nothing. And so it's hard to imagine you don't see something pretty similar tonight. I'd even, because it's a Woodruff thing, probably lean towards the under. Going to get some value on that, because it's not like the Cardinals are lighting anybody up on offense. They're just getting wins.
And that's what matters at the end of the day. I will add, too, that I like the Cardinals here certainly much better than the Brewers. And their manager, Schilt, is an impressive 24-17, making 13 units. So it's $1,300 per $100 bet, facing a National League starting pitcher whose ERA is 2.75 or better. As we already noted, Milwaukee's starter is 2.55, so that qualifies. That's pretty good stuff there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep. So the next one we're going to talk about here looks like a complete mismatch. The Dodgers against the Rockies. The only thing that makes it intriguing is the fact that the Rockies are two different teams. Talk about bipolar, but they're on the road, they're by far the worst team in baseball, and at home they're actually, almost scary.
Yeah.
So in this matchup we have Urias, 18-3, 2.99 ERA, left-hander going up against Zenzatala. I can always struggle with that name. 4-9 record, but a 4.06 ERA, which isn't all that bad. But the betting line here is just kind of like out of sight. But what do you think we should do?
Well, so it's hard not to look towards the Rockies when you're getting this much at home, just in general, because it's almost goes through that organization. John Gray and German Marquez and Kyle Freeland, they're all just better at Coors Field. And I don't know if it's the comfort level on the mound or just they're used to knowing how to pitch in thin air. They're better. And Senzatela is really not that different. The thing is, in this spot, and why I probably wouldn't even be on the Rockies, maybe not even on the run line, which is probably the only place to find value, is Urias he's got something going. He's also 5-1 straight up and against the run line at Coors Field in his career. And the Dodgers actually win those games by a score of like 8.5-4. And so, not only he's not winning because his team is scoring a bunch of runs for him, he's winning because he's also kind of shutting them down. And it's, I'm not a guy that gives a damn about wins. I know he's got a lot of wins because I've seen it on ESPN and because you said it, and I couldn't care less. If he was 6-11 with these numbers, he would still be, getting props from me for a potential Cy Young. But, and you are going to find a little more value on a run line away team like the Dodgers, but I probably wouldn't go there either because, if I was going to go a certain direction here, I would take the Dodgers on the run line in the first 5. You're probably going to have to lay $1.40 on that, but I think that's pretty solid value. The Dodgers will get to Senzatela more than Urias, at least to start this game.
Yeah, and I like that first 5 quite a bit. The team record for the Dodgers with Urias on the hill is 12-1. Installed as a moneyline road favorite of -125, and also the same record for the first 5.
Yeah.
So they obviously score first, they get out ahead, and the game is over way before the 9th inning.
Yeah.
So I like that first 5 play quite a bit there. We have one more play here for the National League contenders. Major League Baseball playoffs, Giants-Padres. And these were supposed to be series where, we expected after the All-Star break, the old man rotation of the Giants was going to fall apart because they all were over the age of 30. And it's been amazing. I can't remember a team that has had the chemistry and the will to win that the Giants have put on. Still holding off those Dodgers by a game. So this is very important to the Giants. And Padres are still mathematically there, but I don't know if they really have any gas left in the tank. You also had that little team fight in the dugout the other day with Tatis. That wasn't good. What do you think here, Dr. Chuck?
Well, I don't know. It's so interesting. It's so interesting with this team. I can't help but, now Snell's down, Paddock's down. They're digging deep. I mean, they picked up, and I actually didn't hate this, but we're at the point where the Padres were a team that we thought might win the NL West division, and they're picking up Vince Velasquez the second the Phillies release him, who start him immediately, put him on a plane, put him on the mound. Like that's the status of this team, and it's a little bit of a bummer because I was one of those people that was like, what do you mean they traded for Snell and Darvish? Like, I mean, they already have Mackenzie Gore coming up. Like, what? They already had a pretty solid rotation anyway. I mean, they have Mike Clevenger. I mean, there's a point in time when this organization is going to have 10 starters better than teams like the Pirates. It's kind of shocking, but
Oh, it is.
The injuries and the strife and just the teams in the division just ended up being too much. I mean, they can't even go to Colorado and get a win. So it just isn't going to work out. And I, not being the biggest Bryce Harper fan, I was very relieved when they gave the MVP to Freddie Freeman last year. And I'll be very relieved if they give the MVP to Bryce Harper this year because they're going to find a reason to give El Nino an MVP. And I do like the kid, but he's not the MVP. And, to this game, I already have the Dodgers. I already have the Giants. Find a line if you can. There's a ridiculous line at DraftKings right now where the Padres are favored. I guess DraftKings is hoping that Musgrove is the starter, which I think is what they should go with. You can get this at about minus 105, minus 110 to get Gausman. He's 4-1 in this spot. And the VMI, as we were discussing, is a full-on 7-point advantage for the Giants, as well as the Padres have dropped 6 points in their VMI just from their last game before having a day off, which I also like backing a VMI. Win in and ADI of 66 means, this is a spot where I would probably lean not only the Giants at whatever line you can get, I'd probably pepper the Giants run line and the Padres team total under.
Oh, I like it. Now, for the new listeners out there, that's a new term I bet you a lot of them never heard, VMI. Tell us a little bit about that.
So VMI is Visual Memory Index. It goes along with ADI, which is Air Density Index. They're weather metrics that we kind of measure, you and I both look at on a regular basis. We didn't discuss umpires in this segment. We will. We're always looking at umpires. It's harder on a first game series basis. On a Tuesday morning, you're not going to have a lot of umpire data if they didn't play yesterday, etc. But ADI is going to be a stadium-based situation where it's air density based on humidity and wind, and it's going to range a lot of times from 60 to 70 at most stadiums. You're going to have something in the low 40s to mid 40s in Coors Field where there's very thin air, but the ball should travel a little bit better. Surprisingly, people think when it's humid, the ball travels less, but actually the humid air ball travels farther. So you're going to have a low towards 60 ADI and a higher humidity, and you're going to get more ball travel. Higher ADI, which you're going to get a lot of times in those stadiums like San Francisco in the 70 range. You can get the wind blowing out there in the Giants home game and still get a pretty good underplay. The VMI is largely based on the pitcher's four-seam fastball and other repertoire, as well as what the hitter has seen recently versus what the pitcher is going to be throwing. So the Padres came in with a last game of a positive 3 VMI, which they're seeing that four-seam fastball and other pitches a little bit better. Today they're almost a negative 4, and And while -4 is not in a terrible range, you want it to be like -6 or more or deeper to really affect. But with Gausman having, the prowess that he has and the way the Padres are playing, I like to bump that -4 up a little bit more, just because this is the first game of the series. They're not going to see that pitch as well, and the Giants also have a really solid bullpen, so it just kind of goes from there, which is why, like, a lot of times the way to play a VMI is to look at a team total. Yesterday one of our plays was the Braves had a VMI of +8 just for that game. You play the team total Braves over 5.5, and you play a big.
I love it. That's stuff that makes a lot of sense to me too. And -6 and lower. When you see that and everything else aligns, that just for the new listeners, that would cause you to play the under then.
It can go. There's a lot of different ways. It can rear its head in all the different capping strategies. So I mentioned that probably our best VMI situation is to fade the Padres tonight. But you could look at it this way: the Giants are on the plus side, and so you could say, well, that's an even bigger reason. That's an even more reason that I see this to be a 5-1 game. And so while I hate playing a team total under, I'll gladly play the Giants on the run line, which you're going to get a nice big positive value on at this moment. Now, if this opens and Reese Kinnear is pitching and Kevin Gausman's playing him and the Giants open as -170, then it's not going to be the same. And so, you have to get on top of these things. Our biggest play from last night was the Braves on the run line and on the team total. And the night before, they opened at -140 on DraftKings. DraftKings, if you have it, is where you're going to get your best value, because they opened at -140. Every other book opened it the next morning at -185. -185 was the stone cold winner. -110 on the run line was still a winner, and they scored 9 runs. So you were good in all cases, but it's all about value and line value. And if you get -140 over -185, it's just better, period, no matter how much you win by.
That's awesome stuff, Chuck. I love it. I'm glad you took the time to explain it to the viewers too, because that's easy for them to find on the internet from the sites, and it obviously provides a lot of data intelligence that's useful. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to really understand and benefit from it. So that's really cool.
Shout out to dailybaseballData.com, because not only do they give us the VMI, ADI, but you're going to get your umpires. They're the best site to get the umpires up earliest, as well as pitcher versus batter data, which is always good too, because you for player props, most of all, see who's been hitting and who's been hitting this pitcher, and you're more than likely going to hit, over 60% of your props too.
Yeah, it's always important to know where Joe West is, and Hernandez and Nelson. It is very important.
Jerry Davis, you got to find Jerry Davis. Find him. He's on a farewell tour. He doesn't want to piss off any home crowd, and the home team's 9-0, and they haven't been close.
I didn't even know that. That's awesome. When is he behind the plate again?
Not much. Unfortunately, he was sick, sat out the COVID season, missed the first half of this season, and I'm assuming he hasn't announced it, but I've been playing it each time as saying it's his farewell tour, and he hasn't disappointed yet. I mean, he hasn't disappointed to the tune of, like, the Rangers beating the Astros type stuff. So that's
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing stat there.
And that's what I call these umpires. I have their nicknames. I call these guys the hometown heroes. They're not interested in being booed. You're going to get a pretty solid strike zone, even on a bad home starter. And these are things you got to take into account.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Chuck. Again, that'll conclude our National League view. We're going to do another video here shortly, which will be the American League edition, except there's one game that is Mets and Red Sox. That's obviously interleague, but that'll be out later today, as well as this one. So make sure you get both of them, because as you can tell, this guy is really good, and there's no reason in the world why you shouldn't tail him, and better yet, get one of his subscriptions. Get his baseball, get my football.
Yeah. I
think you'll be pretty darn happy. Okay, guys?
Right.
So for Dr. Chuck and myself, the Predictive Playbook, sportsmemo.com, and wagertalk.com, may all the wins be yours.